Welcome, everyone. I am so thrilled that you get to spend some time with me, Jeanette, Granny Ronna on the screen here, as you see. And today we have a special guest, Linet Sanchez. Hello, hello. This is one of
Hello.
those episodes that I'm really passionate about because I get to be on screen, which is a rare thing, and facilitate a conversation between two women that are really thriving in the world in ways that I know so many of us dream of having. They are in amazing relationships. They are amazing wives. They're doing great things in the world. They are passionate about helping other couples. I could go on and on. It's been it's been quite a journey for me to get to this point, to be able to have this session with these two women that I have come to greatly admire. And I think for anyone, if you have followed, subscribed to watch any of Granny Ronna's content, you know how much she has been wanting to engage with more people, with you, with coaches, with mentors, with leaders, with women who are in it to make a difference in their lifetime. And I think this is going to be one of many that we will be seeing. And I will continue to take pride in watching conversations like this unfold. I hope this is just one of many. In fact, I'm pretty sure this is one of many, given the nature of what we're going to talk about today. So before I bring out both Lynette and Granny Ronna take center stage, I will start by sharing today's topic. We're focusing on relationships, and this session is absolutely for you. If you are in the process of really solidifying the current level of commitment that you have with your beloved, this is for you if maybe you've been dating for a while, you know you're about to take that next step and you're wondering what's waiting for you on the other side. This is also for you if you've already taken that next step and you're now wondering, okay, well, the dating was awesome. Now we're supposed to make this a happily ever after. Cinderella, my favorite fairy tale, is amazing right up until they get married. Then it ends. So happily ever after is just not discussed very much. Am I right, ladies? And I'm so glad that the two of you are going to invest your time, your energy, your experience, your love for wanting to see more loving couples in the world today to share with the internet, with the YouTube community, with social media, with anyone who actually wants to have a chance at happily ever after. And it is my joy that you have allowed me to facilitate this. So welcome and thank you on behalf of every man, woman out there who wants to have happily ever after. Are you ready?
We are ready. I am super ready.
Yeah.
Stoked. So here's where I want us to start. I would like for us to take just 30 seconds to a minute to kind of share with the people why they should listen to you, right? Because, usually when I start to listen to someone who says they're going to help me with something, my first inclination is why. So it would be great if let's start with Lynette. How about that? We go younger generation first. Let's start with tell us a little bit about who is Lynette Sanchez and why should we listen to you on this particular topic of going from dating to everlasting love?
Thank you very much for the wonderful introduction, Jeanette, and for giving me the first space to speak a little bit about why people might want to listen to what I have to say here. And I believe that anybody that is in a point in life, and when I say anybody, I am talking specifically about women. But of course, men can also benefit from this because we're going to be talking about relationships and couples. So I believe that in general, both parties, including men, will benefit from this for sure. But when I say that particularly women, is because I made a decision a few years back that I was not going to have it that way anymore. That was a conscious, radical decision. And what I mean by that is the way I was dating, the way I was carrying on my relationships and showing up for myself and for others that would relate to me, it was it was in a very unconscious way. I was only focused on the outside, on how chaotic is the dating world is, and I'm so fed up with the non-available, not that into me. No, I don't know what I want. Satellites that I said, okay, I'm done with this. But at that point, I was still focusing on the outside, on what was not working, and without realizing that a great deal of all that, it was on me. I was first of all not behaving in to my own standards. I was not the reason why I was attracting unavailable, like emotional unavailable or not ready peeps. It was because I was not ready myself, and it took a while, and it took a quite, piece of courage to actually see it, to face it and say, oh, wait a minute. I think I got this all wrong. And I started a whole inner, work process in looking inwards and looking into my patterns, my relational and my relational and reactive patterns, emotional patterns, all my history, what I've done, my decisions, what brought me here. Because obviously what brought me here was not gonna take me there. And there was that relationship with that high value man that will be really ready, open, and willing to a committed relationship of the quality I deserved. But for me to deserve that, I had to also become that one that I was calling from. I needed to become that one. I needed to do a whole inventory of my whole self with all my parts together and see what is that I'm bringing onto the table here. What is that I'm bringing, and what is gonna take for me to be that woman that is the servant of that man as well. Right. So I think that what I've learned throughout my experiences, my challenges, my fuck ups, because I could write a book. I could write a book of my fuck ups rather than my successes in relationship. And I'm gonna add, let me tell you this, just to get it out of the way, because I feel like I need to be as transparent as I can. Before I met my husband, and we are in a 3-year relationship now with a 2.5-year-old baby. You can make the math and you can understand that everything happened pretty fast there, right? Before that, my relationships would always last like 2 months. And I have had a few other long-term relationships, but it was kind of scattered, like on and off, on and off. But really, this relationship in which I am right now, 3 years now, for me, that means a 50-year relationship in my history. I've learned it has been like a boot camp of personal growth and relational self-awareness embodied, if that makes sense. Oh my gosh, I've learned so much and I have so much to share because it is a completely different world, the dating landscape, to actually jump into a relationship that is meant to last. But not only to last, because we can last and be miserable. I'm not up for that. I'm not signing up for that. I want to last, and I'm down to and committed to last, but being happy, but being myself, but being proud of who I am, and raising a human being in that container of love, acceptance, and and trauma free. Because honestly, what I really am for is for breaking the cycle of trauma that is being passing down generation after generation because we don't know how to relate with ourselves and with others. That is, I think, what I want to.
That is a drop the mic moment. I am signing up for Linet Sanchez and Granny Ronna, Everlasting Love, because that is the thing. You know, I have been a recipient of Granny Ronna's message of the fact that choosing happily ever after means that you get to be with someone who makes you more of who you are, not someone who completes you. I love that so much from her. It's one of her sayings, like, it's not you complete me. No, 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 no. I'm already complete. It's that I have become more of who I am, which means I am happy when we are together. I am not just in it because of the sake of being in it. No, I'm in it because we become expansive when we're together. And to hear you say those same words, it's like y'all have gone to the same school of marriage and I went in. Granny, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and why we should listen to you on this particular topic?
So my love and respect to you, Jeanette, with thanks for hosting this. And Linet, you're like my new bestie. I'm a big believer in cross-generational, multi-generational friendships. We all need those relationships to stay alive and vibrant. And that's my big credential for this conversation is that I have been married for 41 years. He's putting his hand up in a victory sign to the same handsome, wonderful man. His name is Jimmy, but we call him Pop-Pops because he's a grandfather to so many. And I was sitting here thinking, I'm almost like the prequel to the movie of your life in that back in the 80s, I am 73, I am old. Even in late 70s, I have always worked. I have always needed to make money. I've always enjoyed making money. And my generation was an early set of women who were trying to balance work and family. And, we got so much wrong. And we got some things right. What I'm left with is the memory of how do I do everything I need to do? And the deeper question that Linet raised, which is, how do I be everything I need to be? And can I really do all those things at once? You know, can I go after being CEO of a big company? Can I be an entrepreneur who's looking to raise capital in a world where 1% of money for went to women-owned businesses? So I have had sort of the first shot at the forest of challenges that everyone who works and has a family and wants to have a long-term relationship faces. We've all got similar work to do. And I feel like, because I have been on a road like this before, I'm kind of like a Waze for long-term relationships where I can say, you might want to turn left there, or, how Waze will tell you construction ahead. I can also tell you danger ahead. And the reason to listen to me is that my intention is to be of service to you so that the blessing of my 41 years of being in love, working through the hard stuff, having the trauma, wanting to escape the constriction of marriage, so that all of that isn't a value just to me, but to value of all of you. That's what I'm here for.
Awesome. Shout out to you, Ronna. Shout out to you. I hope that you can touch a lot of women and couples out there because we so much need a role model. I wish I had met you 2 decades ago, when I was lost in translation. When I was lost in how do I do life, how do I do relationships, because I had no clue. I did not have a model, a relational model to look up and be proud of. None of my families, to the contrary of your experience, I like this happy ever after. After what? There was not any after and not any happy, because as a rule of thumb, men would just leave and disappear from the relationship and from their children's life, for that matter.
Yes.
And that happens in different generations, including mine and my sister. So my truth, my belief was that I could not trust men. Simply, I have to be on my own, and I have to do, and that's what it is. This is it.
If you had met earlier, then you wouldn't be the coach that you are today. So this is why you needed to meet now, because then both of you can do this work together.
Absolutely. And I think that one of the things that's happened to me since I've been on social media is that people have reached out and told me either they had grandparents who were a model and their parents were, or they didn't have grandparents who were a model. I can't be your in real life granny, but I can be there for you, and we can share love and energy. And you don't have to lack the guidance that you may have lacked years ago. It is here for you now.
I completely agree with that, Ronna, and I just want to expand a little bit, if I may, on that, because when I see you and I see me and I see how we come from completely different, first of all, cultural backgrounds, generations, and life experiences, and still we can bring so much value to our audience, to our couples, women out there that are struggling to be seen, heard, valued, and understood from completely different life history. Like, you are coming with this strong, solid, happily ever after model for relationships, and you can like just say pinpoint thing here this way better, like, yeah, you might want to look at it, shedding light from that perspective, right? Coming from a rough, failing, crashing, more of a past and model. So I can tell you also why you should not go that way and you should go this way instead, because that way I know very well where it leads. I know very well where that road where you are is gonna lead. And I can tell you from my skin that this is not a good way to go. Right? And now that I am in these relationships, that I'm learning even more and more and more and becoming a mother right after starting a relationship of this kind. Wow. Wow, it has been like really like 50 years condensed, like, or let's not 50, because by 50, when I have 50 years of relationship, I will be, I think, older than you, but but at least the first 10, 20 years condensed in three, of how much that has represented to me. So I really look forward to learn more about from your wisdom.
Amazing. And on that note, ladies, I think we are ready to talk about the top challenges that we see single women, newlyweds facing in 2024 when we're thinking about going from dating to lasting love.
I want to start by mentioning that the first thing that come to mind right now is that transition from singlehood, from dating to actually, okay, now we are in a relationship. How do we do this? That staying committed, for another type of way of relating, that patience, because here's something that Granny Ronna might have not experienced, and is how we date today with the catalog of options that we have once we press the different dating apps that are out there. You don't even need to go out and flirt and dance and interact and feel people's energy, because everything is through the screen. And then at a step of a click, you dismiss or invite somebody into your world. That is freaking in all the ways possible. And that for me was a shock also when I moved to Europe. So when you make the decision that, okay, I found this person and I want to commit to, what do you do there? Where do you get the patience and the commitment to actually put aside all the options, and with all the decision fatigue and all the FOMO of what you might have missing, and you stay and you keep choosing every day that person that you chose. Yeah. So when you have had some time, and that's what I wanted, that's my experience that I want to tap into, when I have had already like a few years into a relationship and the challenges as time start to arise, that job loss comes into the picture, parenthood comes into the picture, and life challenges of all kinds of emotional disconnection happen, unhealthy conflicts that go unrepaired, and when you don't have the tools to deal with that, the communication skill that you need, because nobody taught you that, because you don't have a model that you can look up and say, oh, that's how we do love in our family, and you don't know where to draw from. What do? You need to find a model. You need to study. You need to go you need to immerse yourself in understanding how, first of all, what you bring into the table. What is that you bring? What is the baggage that you bring? What that looks like in the context, in the container of the relationship, and what is that your partner brings in the same container, and how that interaction shows up.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but this is very interesting, because you're essentially saying that what we need to do is to recognize that there's a new container. That's when I commit to someone, there's a container, and committing to showing up and staying in that container. Is that kind of what you're saying? Like, I'm no longer just an individual, and that's kind of like the challenge, right? Like, before I'm just me, and now it's not just me.
Exactly. That is one thing that will lead to another challenge that I found. I'm gonna elaborate a little bit more on that a little bit later. But first, I want to point out that there is a transition that needs to be acknowledged and given the importance it has. Because one thing is us dating, and another completely thing is us in a relationship, in a committed relationship. Because that represents a whole load of other skills that you need, that you don't need in the you have to. I think one of the skills is actually stay dating, like keep dating. Please keep dating. Bring that energy. But then what are the other things? Like what like how do you do conflicts? How do you resolve conflicts? How do you stay connected? How do you maintain that intimacy, that connection that you felt in the beginning, when nobody had yet showed their teeth? Because, right? Can you relate? Can you relate, Ronna? Can you relate, Janet, that when we are in that phase, everything is tidy and neat, but when things get closer and one start showing like, oh, I don't like this. Okay, so how do we navigate the conflicts? How do we navigate the disconnection, and sometimes even the drop on the sexual drive that can come with those challenges, and with that disconnection and that breaking in the communication, with that rupture in the communication. You want to say something? I see that you want to say something, Ronna.
Yes, it's like you've raised so many important ideas. I'm afraid I'll forget them before I respond. So you are totally right. I know nothing about dating. I have heard of polyamory. I can't manage a relationship with one beloved husband easily. So there's no more dating for Granny. But I do remember dating, and you are so right that going from dating to marriage is a huge shift. So let me talk about setting intention, and then I want to build on what you said about communication with a specific that I have seen showing up and that stays for the duration. So something I did accidentally that I now think was very powerful is that when Jimmy and I got married, we had been quarreling a lot before the actual wedding ceremony because we both had nerves. But I remember that day feeling in my heart, oh, I want to be with him for 50 years. And I had the number 50 years in my head. And we talked about it, and it was like, do you want to sign up for 50 years? And it was like, yeah, okay. And so we signed contracts, and the promise we made to the people who were there for the wedding was that we wanted to be together and that we needed that help. I remember very clearly we had lived together for about 1.5 years before we got married. And I thought, oh, we're just getting married because it's the right thing to do for the kids. But no, getting married, to your point, Linet, is a very different container. It is not cohabiting. It is committing to a set of actions that are not the same as dating and not the same as living together. The communications I want to talk about to build on what you're saying about the importance of communications, just one area. I want to talk a little bit about communicating about money. When you were talking about showing your teeth, when you're dating, it's really easy. I mean, I have friends of all ages and friends who still date, and the talks about money are who picks up the tab for dinner, or do you share the bar bill? They're not what happens and how do we put our money in one pot or do we put it in several pots. It is so easy not to have that conversation because talking about money can feel yucky. You're going to have two different points of view about money because your values are different no matter what. And you have to talk about money in terms of having pooled money and separate money. One of the things that really surprised me was when I found that Gen Z couples are more likely, even than baby boomers, to pool their income and have joint accounts. They are much more likely to have all their money together. And at the same time, they're much more likely to hide things from each other, to lie to each other. One article called it money infidelity, right? You're going outside the marriage to resolve a problem. And so if you have the habit early on of saying, here's what I've got, here's what you've got, here's what we're going to do to decide, here is, where we share goals, here is where we don't. That's almost like the equivalent for starting out your marriage by brushing your teeth. It's financial hygiene is a habit. And the longer you put it off, the worse it's going to be and the harder it's going to be to get started. So I'm not an old curmudgeon. I remember my honeymoon. Whoa, baby. I remember my honeymoon. And that memory has gotten us through some bad times. But when you get back from the honeymoon and you're working on doing what Linet suggests, which is learning how to communicate with each other, because it's one of the biggest reasons couples break up, it's the second biggest reason, put on your schedules, invite your spouse, do whatever you have to do to sit down and plan to talk about money. How do we feel about money? What do we want to do with our money? Where do we believe that we're going to be able to work together? So I am more concerned about nutrition and our health because I want us to hit our 50th, right? And I am the one who would go to Whole Foods and buy small batch granola that's sweetened with monk fruit, you know, like the little expensive cereal thing, because I believe, oh, that's abundance, right? More time is abundance. Jimmy is the guy who would go to the big box store and buy, you know, a box of cornflakes this big that has no brand. And the first thing on the label is high fructose corn syrup. Because that's cheaper. That's cheaper. Now, does that mean that I'm the spender and he's the saver? Or, I mean, it does mean that, but it also means what values are we expressing through how we value money? Because the fights that couples get into over money, and Lord knows, Jimmy and I we had fights about money that were so bad. We went to marriage counselors, I think, 3 times. And one time we had such a serious disagreement about money that our 2 marriage counselors called each other up and they got into a fight. You can't make it up, right? So those fights reflect who we are as people. And if we learn to talk about our values and give each other a little room early on, it doesn't get up to here, right? Where you look at the cereal box, you look at the cereal box, you look at the cereal box, and suddenly you're like, money fights can feel, you can express hostility toward each other, except it's not really about the money, right? It's not really about the money. It's about how you grew up, what your values are. And it also, there's another point that I think ties back to something I think you can speak to so powerfully. And that is setting goals together. That's got to happen early on. You have to agree together on what your goals are. And to your amazing point, Linet, about the work you need to do yourself, I expect a lot of the people looking at this are journaling, they're working on manifesting, they've got their own self-conversations going about what they want in the world, what I want in the world, what she wants in the world. And then it has to come to the table with your spouse, who will do that work probably in a different way. And you have to talk about what your goals are. And you have to learn to talk about it as together goals. Early on, I remember, this was within our first 10 years of marriage. We were a little past where you are. You will be abundant, live an abundant life, Linet, I promise you. And right now it looks far off, but it isn't. So we were moving toward more abundance. And Pop-Up said to me, I have a goal. And I was like, oh, yeah. I work in financial services. I love goals. And he said, I really, really, really want a Corvette.
A what?
Corvette. Those fancy, low-slung cars that are, you can't put the kids in the back. You can't put luggage in the back. All you can do is pretend like you're young enough to attract some hot chick, right? And go way too fast and break the speed limit. So
in today's market, it would be like a Lambo.
Something like that, or a Porsche or something like that.
A 2-seater
Exactly.
Porsche or Lambo, yes.
A Porsche, Lambo, a vintage Ferrari. And so that's the moment where it calls for the kind of growth that Linette's talking about, where you can't say, are you out of your mind? We've got kids to put through college. Are you crazy?
I am so happy that you mentioned that you brought that up, Ronna, because, you mentioned 2 things that pops, like, that I can completely relate, and is the values, the shared values, and that shared goals or vision. And that taps perfectly into a challenge that I found myself, and I find in couples I talk to, is that in that transition from dating and being single to step into a relationship, a committed relationship, there is that, in that container, there is that thing of becoming a team, of being a team. because you are no longer one person making decisions about where you're gonna go into your next holiday, and how are you gonna burn your wallet the next time, or what box of waffles or
Yeah.
granola you're gonna buy. No, you are now in a container in which that other person has become together, has blended with you, and you have become a unit. Yeah, you have to stop. We have to stop ourselves from that silo of being, you know, to and the shift to that symbiotic unit in which I believe that the ultimate goal of it would be to have a shared vision, because
Yes.
it's going on a train. It's like jumping on a train, and if you're not going, if you're not going to, if you don't want to go to the same direction, at some point somebody is going to step out of the train. You have to agree. Yeah.
I agree with you, and the image I keep in my mind is a little different. When we were first together, I had the notion that when you got married, you became one. But now I think of it more as each of us being two giant oak trees. We are each our own beautiful tree. And underneath us, there are vines and connections that are very entangled, where we're communicating all the time. And each of us has like a little ecology of things, like your children, our friends, that depends on us. And yet the challenge is within the container to have circles that overlap, but I'm not making this with my hands very well, but I'm trying to show that they're overlapping circles, and yet you still have room for yourself. Because when we tried to agree on everything, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, so we're going to have these agreements, and there wasn't any room to make any independent decisions. There wasn't really room to breathe on our own. That was not so healthy. And I believe now that we have benefited from understanding our container to be biological. I agree with you that marriage is another container. I think of it as like a biological, alive sphere. And we are both in it, floating in it, maybe like babies in an amniotic sac, right? We're both floating in it, and we're bumping against each other, and we need each other to get things done. And we need to grow. We each need to grow.
Yeah, I love the analogy and the image that you put. I can totally see it. And I'm happy also that I'm happy every time you intervene. I'm like, oh yeah, I got it right. I got it right. Because I wanted to actually talk about that. And when I say this symbiotic unit, is what is the beginning. It's like what you feel like in the beginning. Everything is so blended and so mixed, and I have experienced, and I have seen also with the people I work with, is that we tend to get lost into that symbiosis. If that makes sense. It's like, okay, like where do I begin? Where do I stop? What is me, and what is you, and what is us, right? Because it's three different elements.
It's three different elements.
Individuals have needs and desires and wants, and every one of us has that. And then the relationship in itself, that container, also have its needs, and it needs to be nurtured in a specific way for it to thrive. It's like a plant, right? What I'm trying to say is that becoming a team, it is the reason why it's so challenging, because we need to find a balance. And okay, we have shared values and shared vision and shared goals, and the way we want to live life, and lifestyles and beliefs, and way of expressing our emotions. We come with our whole selves, right? And when we play into each other, it brings a completely different being. It's like the relationship itself becomes a third element, right?
Exactly.
That holds both of us. And how do we can um hold ourselves in our individuality, in our differentiation, and we accept each other's in our different beings, and also learn to appreciate the similarities, both similarities and individualism and that differentiation, and still be together, right? And still find this common vision, these common goals, these common principles and values that will be the North Star of their relationship. So where that mutual interdependence, what is I, like what is I and you versus us, and in the decision
Yes.
making, how does that play out in the decision making when we are gonna make a decision? And we cannot just simply decide, like I used to just, some friend would invite me to, let's go to have a coffee, or to for a drink or for a dance, and now I need to, and I want to involve my husband before I make any decision, because I feel that this is a way that I am honoring this connection and this relationship that we have, and respecting what we have created together. So I completely agree with that, and I'm so happy that you also, that we are in the same wavelengths, in which one thing is that blend and that relationship, that unit, and another thing is still stand in our ground, right? And having the capacity to be ourselves, and at the same time
Yeah.
relate to each other. We're accepting each other's differences.
I'm thinking about that, and I'm thinking two things. The first one is, I was really glad you talked about sex early on, because dating and the early stages of a marriage, I can remember friends of mine complaining to me about, God, Ronna, you guys have your hands all over each other all the time, right? It's like you're not even here. And I wasn't even there. We were, when the desire for pleasure and the ability to give each other pleasure explodes at the beginning of a relationship, that's what the relationship is about, right? Like, that's a great time to go through. And then the relationship shifts from not losing physical intimacy, but finding that as a path to heart and soul intimacy, right? So that sex kind of gives you the charge you need to go through working on the tough stuff. And the tough stuff always has to do with, you talked about standing up for yourself. I am someone who has had to work on boundaries. Lots of people do have to work on boundaries. And some of the people watching this will describe themselves as people pleasers. So when you have any tough conversation, whether it's about, especially I guess if it's about money, at some point you're going to have to say no. There's going to be, to keep your boundary, as much as you love your spouse and you want to please them, you're going to have to say no. And every time we say no, the other person pulls back for a second, right? No is like a little from the other person. Yes. Yes is so much fun, right? Yes, let's drop everything and go to Portugal. Yes, let's go ahead and get that race car, whatever it is. Your marriage, anyone's marriage, depends on the ability to say no. And that's why these early conversations where you're talking about what you want, it's important that they give you the opportunity to say what you don't want. So this is a goal. This is not a goal right now. Maybe someday it will be a goal for us, but right now it isn't. And to own your responsibility for staying in your frame, in your boundaries, and saying no, I think that's, for me, that's been one of the hardest lessons to learn about a healthy relationship. And one of the things that's made it possible for us to come back together in the times we thought, I can't bear this another minute and I want out.
Ronna, I'm so happy that you mentioned that, because I believe that, setting boundaries and keeping boundaries is absolutely, and like for sure, one of the biggest challenges that individuals in general, not only couples but individuals, face in today's world. As far as I know, I don't know about other generations, but as it is now, that is also a topic that has been more popular, and that people are actually talking more about that. I'm really passionate about boundaries because it's not only safety inducing. I feel like if you don't have boundaries, you just go over. It's like, that's why we have in the streets, in the big cliffs, and big roads, you have those boundaries that are telling you that you cannot go that way, because you will fall down, you will derail and die. So that is exactly the mission of a boundary in a relationship. It's like to create that safe container in which we can be ourselves, but we are also aware of that there is another person right there, right, that we need to respect. And when I say no, it might be a not now, but regardless, it's a no. It's a no, and needs to be respected for me to feel safe. And that brings to the couple, or to whoever, to the individual, whatever context it is, more freedom to play around. Then you are not confined to the center of, okay, we don't know where the boundaries are, so we are not moving, we are staying here. Instead, when you have the boundaries well set, and you have the capacity to stay in that, to keep the boundary, you can expand, you can go to all the edges and explore all what needs to be explored, because we are full universes to be discovered. And that is not possible to do it in the first, not even in the first years, because we constantly change. And as we change, those changes made us a different person. This has been such an insightful and thought-provoking conversation so far, and I feel like I have so much to say more, and I'm sure you, Ronna, also had a lot. If you take something with you, is to prioritize your relationship. Really prioritize your relationship, and invest in it, because it will pay off, not only for you, for your partner, but for your little ones. And I'm presuming here that you do want to build a family, to continue your legacy in this humanity. So do prioritize your relationship, and do not wait until it is too late, until you cross the not return point. Seek for professional help, seek for support before, like already when you start things, when you start scattering your mind, when you start doubting whether to stay or leave. Look up for that support, for that model that can guide you to the right path of a thriving, loving, and fulfilling long life relationship.
Linet, it was sheer joy to share with you, and I am hoping that our viewers get as much from this as I've just received. Both of us come from the same place, which is marriage is worth fighting for. And there are practical tools available to you that we will do our very best to share with you. So we'll be back with more. There'll be more content. Tell us what would be helpful for you to hear, and we will see you next time.